Stop that. Stop that. Stop that. Yeah, I hear him chat to the noise. Move too quick, can't stop for the talking. I hear him chat with the walking. Just too sharp with the prize. White girls let it tell me I'm awesome. Yeah, hot like fire on the pan. If you wanna touch me, please use caution. Cold like 0 degrees. I'm out the cage, gotta let out the beast. Revolutionary, gotta let out the streets. Locked in a cage, I'ma let out the Wake up, let out the sheets. We came for one man, forget my peace. You take the west, I'll take on the east. I'ma put him in the cage, never let out the Yeah, I hear him chat to the noise. Move too quick, can't stop for the talking. I hear him chat with the boys. Man so tough, but mans keep walking. Yeah, just too sharp with the prize. White girls, let it tell me I'm awesome. Yeah, hot like fire on the pan. If you wanna touch me, please use caution. Stop that. Stop that. Stop that.
Right after the Super Bowl, Stugotz, immediately at the end of football,
Right.
with impeccable, perfect timing, LeBron James enters the mix. LeBron James.
He's back.
LeBron James enters the conversation before the NBA All-Star team. He is not on one of the best teams, but in a sport for the last 15 years, he has dominated, and the storylines are everywhere in that sport. For him at the end to be this old and still be in the game about the Warriors or having owner-to-owner conversations about whether or not LeBron James wants to shift the balance of the league by playing with Steph Curry at the end and creating whatever that story is. What's going on back there with you guys? You seem to be...
A lot of questions back here on when was the All-Star trade deadline? Or was it before the All-Star break or not? The NBA trade deadline?
NBA trade deadline.
The thing is, I told everybody back here, it was in Vegas. We just didn't see it because of all the 1,000 things we were doing in Vegas. But I remember walking by a TV at the sportsbook and being like, the Knicks made a trade.
Yeah, apparently the trade deadline is now before the All-Star game, which I understand why, because it can be really awkward if you get traded, around there. But all these stories about LeBron, they're interesting, but they're much ado about nothing since it's not an actual power play. The day has come and gone.
Correct, but it's still him trying to get in the conversation, is it not? It's him.
Is there a lack of LeBron conversation?
I mean, LeBron's in the conversation still. It's Golden State trying to win another championship. That's what, and LeBron's saying, no, I don't want to win a championship there. It's weird.
Do you find interesting what is happening with the Warriors at the end of this dynastic run where Klay Thompson is talking to you out loud about his vulnerabilities and Jerkic and Draymond Green are going back and forth? And basically, the clash in the middle of the Warriors with Draymond Green is, do you mock him for doing therapy? Do you that's actually that is now where the mental health conversation has gone in the NBA, where trash talk resides. Draymond and Charles Barkley are going to be doing a simulcast of the All-Star game together. Draymond is creating his media career right now. It's going to be a flourishing, wonderful mess. He's going to be willing to trash people. He'll go for 4 minutes on Jerkic, but Jerkic hits him with, "Don't stay too long on your podcast. You don't want to be late for therapy."
You doing a Chris Cody thing where you combine the first letter of the first name and then the last name? Or you got something else on your mind on Valentine's, Bubba?
Jessica, I am soothed by seeing you back there because you have emerged from the Vegas airport still loud talking for 3 days.
What do you mean?
You don't remember the conversation that you had with Greg Cody that was drunker than Greg Cody's conversation?
I asked Tony if he was here on Monday, like 5
we
minutes
sat next
ago.
to.
I think she is drunk the way Jason Kelce was drunk in that airport. He's not going to shake that off for 4 days.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate. I saw a picture of Jason Kelce in the airport, like just with his head down, wearing a cardigan in the bright fluorescent lights at baggage claim, and I was like, yeah, I that's how I felt for like 4 days now. No amount of sleep has healed me.
That flight hurts, huh? all about that flight hurts through that airport. If you spent 6, 7, 4 days in Vegas, that flight hurts.
That city hurts. The flight hurts. All of it hurts.
It doesn't help either that my mom, who I barely ever talk to because she doesn't know how to use a phone, told me yesterday on the phone I looked really tired on Monday. Thanks, Mom. Come on.
Oh, no, you bounce back well, but you don't remember parts of your Sunday or Monday? Like when I was told that you were drunker than Greg Cody, Jessica, it's not something I can fathom. I haven't seen on a spectrum of drunkenness drunker than Greg Cody.
Yeah, neither have I.
You don't recall it?
I have no idea what we talked about, Dan. I have no idea. All I know is Monday we were talking on the show about me giving my eyelashes to Lewis, and then Lee sent me a picture of my room key from Circa with a pair of dried contacts and eyelashes stuck to it.
You had a week.
You had a week?
I had a day. I was just one day. I can't imagine being there for. Oh wait, we were there for 6 days. I forgot.
Well, an argument broke out before the show today, Stugotz, because Mike Ryan has retired and for 2 days is now returning in a new role, but hasn't gotten to talk about the Super Bowl publicly. And Jessica was still loud talking from drunk Las Vegas airport about how much news came out of the press conference where Shanahan is explaining how he coughed up the Super Bowl. Coughed up the Super Bowl with decision making, and nobody wants to think about it. So, Mike and Jessica, you haven't gotten a chance to talk about the Super Bowl. What are your remnants of Super Bowl observations that we haven't had time to heat around here?
What's a worse look for Kyle Shanahan? To double down and try to apply logic, kind of reverse engineer a reason why he decided to receive the ball first, or to just say, it's the first year of this whole new rule. Most of us learned via Adam Schefter notification right before overtime started. And I know that's the case for 90% of everybody second-guessing it, man. There's no way everybody was familiar with these rules. I know the Chiefs said, we've actually gone through this scenario, and that's great by Andy Reid. It was very clear, as Juszczyk said, the Niners didn't know the rule. Otherwise, why else would you receive the ball in that moment? And according to Kyle Shanahan, it was because he wanted the ball third.
Yep.
And now, I don't know if you remember the game, there was no third possession. And I'm a huge Kyle Shanahan guy. Huge. And I do find it interesting that he is the new Andy Reid. And I hope, like Andy Reid, he can one day change his legacy. This is a immense betrayal from your head coach. That is so bad. These two teams were very equal. It was a good game, and it came down essentially to someone not knowing the rules.
To answer your question, the worst look is what he's doing right now, which is doubling down. Just come out and acknowledge, hey, I was wrong. I didn't know the rules. Stop making excuses. He was playing for a third possession that didn't exist. The Chiefs told him, hey, there was no third possession. If you scored a touchdown, we were going to score a touchdown, and we were going for 2. That's it.
Also, just firing this take off because I haven't had a chance to talk about one of the greatest Super Bowls ever. Mahomes earlier this season complained about the officiating, and he was very frustrated, and then he texted his wife in a group chat, I'm going to make the Super Bowl in Vegas. Watch.
It's awesome.
The game changed when Kansas City realized, we can hold this front four with impunity. Because that front four was dominating that game. Mahomes did nothing in that first half. And the tackles just said, all right, we're going to let it fly, and bear hug these pass rushers from San Francisco. That's fine.
Stugotz,
the officials let them play. The game turned there.
You say that's fine, the officials let them play. I have this right. The Chiefs have now played 13 quarters of Super Bowl football without ever being called for a hold, correct?
I mean, we've all seen the clip of Bosa being bear hugged on a hugely important play. Chase Young was maybe on his way to an MVP performance, and we didn't see much of that in the second half. And it's because the adjustment that was made by Kansas City was, okay, these officials are going to let us play. We can do whatever we want. And by the way, those Kansas City tackles have been getting away with so much all season long. So that's why I came down so hard when Patrick Mahomes decided to be a baby about officiating. He gets the benefit of the doubt so often.
A couple of other things, because, Jessica, you thought interesting the explanation as well. You thought that Shanahan made it worse yesterday.
I think so. I think he should have just lied. Take a leaf out of Stugotz's personal record book. Just lie. Just be like, we talked about every scenario, and this was the one that we thought would work. It didn't work, but we discussed it a lot, and we thought long and hard about it.
I thought
I specifically pulled Juszczyk aside, and I ran down every scenario with him, so I don't know what he's talking about.
I also told him to play dumb after the game. This was all part of my master plan. It didn't work, but we planned all of this.
I understand why, Stugotz, we would go to the end of the game and talk about rules at the end, because what he's saying is egregious. But if I go to you earlier in the game and I show you all of the things that were happening, hey, can you believe that Deebo Samuel can't do anything against McDuffie? Nothing at all. Deebo Samuel erased.
Right.
That it's going to look like San Francisco is doing great things offensively, but if you've held Kittle and Ayuk, and Ayuk's going to leave there unhappy. His whole family's unhappy because he wasn't used in the Super Bowl. And at the end, on the play they needed the most, Stugotz, the play they needed, the 3rd and 4 play where you've got to win and eliminate this criticism for your coach. Because on 3rd and 4th down, you keep the ball, and the referees, that we have the audio now of the referees saying you can't give the ball back to Mahomes. On the 3rd and 4 play where Purdy's got to make a play, he's not throwing to Kittle. McCaffrey's open. The play should have gone to McCaffrey. Somebody comes in, McDuffie comes in unimpeded, and the game ends right there because you never give the ball back to McDuffie if all of a sudden you've got the ball in the game in your hands.
Right.
You never give the ball back to Mahomes.
Sure.
And so when you watch the expertise of what you're talking about there, because Mike's not wrong, you got to know the rules. And how do you not know the rules? But Purdy had the game won, and where the margins of the football game is won, they're throwing Purdy to Jennings because they've eliminated Ayuk and everybody on the team.
But, Dan, the game's not won. Even if they score, that's the point. It's why he needed to go for it on 4th down.
Well, it's why you want the ball second, so you know exactly what the scenario is. Instead of having 3 downs, you have 4 downs to play with there. I think in the press conferences that have ensued after the Super Bowl, Brock Purdy said that there was a missed assignment on that final play. I know you're a big L'Jarius Sneed guy, but I've seen 2 videos of McDuffie being out in the open on that vintage Trent Williams off-tackle run where he's just lead blocking, and Trent McDuffie holds his own against Trent Williams. It was insane. And also, shout out to Bill Jerome Barnwell, because I sat through a 60-minute live podcast with him where he said the X factor in that game would be the 4th best linebacker for Kansas City, Leo Chenal. An off-ball linebacker for them. He was Pro Football Focus's highest graded player in that game. Off-ball linebacker is one of those positions that was all of a sudden devalued by analytics until they realized they had that one wrong. In the last 2 years, that's become the analytical darling position, and he probably was the entire key to that game.
As we talk about all the keys to the game after the keys to the game, the game's been played. This is from Neil Payne, Neil's Substack. Since 2001, there have been 125 drives in the NFL postseason where it was at least the 4th quarter, there was under a minute left to play, and the team on offense trailed by 7 points or fewer at the start. These are your standard clutch moments for a football team, the do-or-die drives that win and lose critical games. Out of those 125 drives, only 40% of them saw the team on offense pull off the magic trick and get the points they needed. Some quarterbacks are pretty good at it, such as Tom Brady, who went 5 for 11, 46%. Or Drew Brees, who went 3 for 6, 50%. Only Patrick Mahomes, though, is 7 for 7, or perfect in those dire situations. And the refs are on audio saying, don't give Mahomes the ball back. You can't give Mahomes. That one thing we know about the sport is don't give. And I'm wondering if next year Brady's going to be bitter all year calling these games because he's going to be like, don't erase me that fast. I was the best at that. Don't erase me at being winner guy that quickly. I just did it a couple of years ago.
Dan, he has 4 more Super Bowls to win. Like the notion that Patrick Mahomes, he's had a great 6 years. Perhaps it's been better than Brady's first 6.
But it's already being done.
Enough.
There's no way that
whoever's doing it is stupid.
No, do I have this wrong? Do you think Brady's not watching this and listening to everybody? Can you guys slow down on erasing me because you're already saying Mahomes is the best at this? I was just playing a couple of years ago.
I mean, Brady's career got off to a weird start in that he had this sort of start that Patrick Mahomes, you could say Patrick Mahomes eclipsed that start. And then for Brady's, what should be his prime, he didn't win a Super Bowl. Yeah. Like we've gone through the set that Wes Welker found a way to not win a Super Bowl with Manning and Brady. He went a really long stretch with other teams going in there and winning the thing. And I think that just expecting Patrick Mahomes to replicate something that we've never seen before is still a bridge too far.
Is Brady a compiler?
Oh boy.
Stop it. What are you doing?
I'm just
do that.
I'm just asking the
course he
question.
is.
Yeah, he compiled rings.
He compiled rings, but like he played until he was 57 or whatever, right?
Wayne Newton.
45.
And then like also, was he ever the best quarterback in the league?
Yeah, the 1 year he didn't win.
Yeah.
Well, did he ever win MVP? Is what you're saying?
Yeah.
No, but MVP doesn't mean he was the best in the league. Did anyone ever look at Tom Brady and say this is the best quarterback? Because I don't know.
You're not going to do this
I don't
today.
know.
What is he
Yeah,
doing,
he's got a
Dan?
point. We did like Peyton Manning, Tom
Yeah.
Brady, and then we did Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, and then we did Pat
think-
Mahomes, Tom Brady.
See what I'm saying?
I think people called him that when he went 2-0 against Patrick Mahomes.
They were wrong. He wasn't the better quarterback.
He's a 3-time MVP.
yeah, but
The cool thing about Tom Brady is that from his skill set, I get the point that he was making.
What do you
because-
do against that?
Because
I'm
Tom
with
Brady, even though being the best quarterback of all time and playing in the greatest era of quarterbacks of all time, was never identified as the most skilled.
see, he could be the greatest of all time, but he was never the greatest.
You know what he was the greatest
At
at,
the time.
Billy? Winning.
Yeah.
Put his rings in a box. Put everybody else's rings in a box.
Yeah,
Plus
but
see how they
minus.
he's
shake up.
played more
Yeah.
years.
But that defense, I mean,
that's
you know
not
what I
good
mean?
He
math.
beat
Defense,
Patrick
please.
Mahomes in Arrowhead as a Patriot. He beat Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl as a Buck.
I'm asking you guys,
COVID year.
do you think that Tom Brady is going to be bitterly calling all of Mahomes' games the rest of the way? Saying from the booth,
Going out of his way to
look,
crush him.
he's already told us the sport is now mediocre. As soon as he retired, he thought, now, will Brady be a hot take artist in old age that just skewers Patrick Mahomes and says, you're not as good as me, kid?
Do it in Carolina.
If you go by PFF rankings between 2010 and 2020, he was the highest rated quarterback 3 times. Tom Brady was.
Right. He's
Well,
great.
the
Yeah,
one
he
year
wasn't 7 times though. So if he's 30%, I mean that's an F.
Stugotz, I wanted to talk about what happened last night with the Miami Heat and the Bucks because what's happening with Milwaukee is funny. I mean, Doc Rivers has now returned heroically. They had a coup, and now they're terrible. And the Heat go in there and win by 30. And
Without Jimmy Butler.
without Jimmy Butler. Well, this is another conversation.
Or
This-
point guard.
Look, yeah. No point guard, no Jimmy Butler.
All
and-
those Damian Lillard assets look pretty good.
So, in one game, it's a one-game sample, but I now have 3 seasons of sample on what I'm about to say, and I can't believe that Duncan Robinson is this dude. But evidently, Duncan Robinson helps in a way that's unusual in the way that he spaces the floor. And the big 3 of Hero and Butler and Bam, when they're together, Stugotz, they're really mediocre. But when one of them's out, they go to the finals a couple of times. and
You have to sit one of the 3 each night. I mean,
some of them are hurt often, and when they get hurt, the Heat play better, and it's a little bit strange. And Duncan Robinson is now a key piece. And I want to play some video, and the audio's not great on this, but I want you to watch some trash talk here between Duncan Robinson and Jaylen Brown, because Duncan Robinson, Stugotz, has become somebody who has, in front of all of us, has improved in a way that's kind of crazy. He has now got a multifaceted game, and he doesn't mind going at it with Jaylen Brown. And I didn't think a bubble ago, when Duncan Robinson was awed to be playing with LeBron James, I didn't think he had this in him. You're not like that. I will tell the audience.
If you're listening on the
only.
podcast, you wouldn't believe what he said.
Yeah, it was. You can imagine how good it was. His sound that you weren't reading, but the end of that, after 30 seconds, was the dismount where Duncan Robinson said to Jaylen Brown at fighting time, "You're not that guy. You're not like that."
What?
Coming from Duncan.
Is that
That's great.
is that a takes one to know one type of thing? It's like, hey, I'm at that you're not that guy pal meeting. We have it every quarter, and I see you there.
Right.
We're at the same you're not that guy pal meeting.
I don't want to fight. I know you don't want to fight. We don't want to fight. I mean,
Dan, you know what's happening right now though? Duncan is getting a little bit of that dog in him. We're slowly getting to a place where that dog is coming out.
Can we have the broader conversation of how it is that they're better when one of the guys is
You
out?
don't want to dig deep on his
You don't
dog
wanna
is
talk
coming
dogs?
out situation.
I mean,
No dog, huh?
Yeah,
No more to that bone.
You want more
Dog in the
dogs?
race, huh?
Don't we all want more dogs on the Heat, right?
Give that dog that bone.
People?
This is a moment of reflection for Jaylen Brown. You just got told by Duncan Robinson you're not that guy, pal. In Black History Month.
Oh, come on. That,
In
what is-
February,
why are you-
Duncan Robinson told you're not that guy,
When
pal.
you're not that guy, you're not that guy.
What are we
no
doing
matter
here?
what month it is.
Oh, look at this. A meeting of two guys that are not that guy.
Scary Terry hurt.
Yes.
Got to sack these wins before he comes back. Ooh, real difficulty navigating that.
A slalom course. Billy, I don't know how you feel because you keep your fandom well concealed. And so I think that the last couple of days, as an economics gut punch, that the Marlins losing Jorge Soler. I know nobody cares about baseball. Allegedly, I care about baseball, and I've been heartbroken.
Just the Rays.
pitchers and catchers today, Dano.
P's and
I mean,
C's.
Yeah.
Great day.
We're back. Opening day at the Light on Friday.
Hey.
New Jersey Institute of Technology. It's a bad day to be injit.
Gotta get a shake.
NIT?
I don't know if you care about players anymore that way, Billy, but once upon a time, Soler hitting 35 homers, being on the cheap, you can keep him. He wants to stay here. You don't have to give him that much, and then the Giants swoop in and give him 3 years, $40 million, and the Marlins can't play the money game with the Braves and the Dodgers or anybody, or the Phillies or the Mets or anybody. They'll lose Soler, even a guy who wants to be here, and I'm wondering if it hurts, or if you just shrug your shoulders and say, well, we're going to lose the division to the Braves for 10 years anyway, so what difference does it make?
Yeah, I mean, closer to that. I mean, not that he wasn't the missing piece that was going to have them win the NL East, so, you know. It kind of felt like he wasn't going to be coming back regardless. It was just a matter of time before he went somewhere.
But then don't you have to feel like you're doomed to an eternity of we're not going to compete?
I felt like that since 1993. Yeah, that's always been my feeling. I'm used to this. I mean, Bell and Berger are coming back, so.
And they fixed the black uniforms.
Yeah, white font now.
Yeah, but then Nike
time.
ruined the uniforms, but at least the black on black is gone.
Some white font on the black unis.
Friday
have
blues.
Exactly right. Some blue ones.
When you're a Marlins fan, Dan, you just take the small victories. I mean, that's it.
playoff team last season. Yeah, that was good. It's good now, but there's new management. We have a GM now, and, didn't get the message that we have to be signing players, but
But you have one.
well, we have one. Exactly right. We're
Easing
figuring it
into
out.
the position.
P's and C's. I imagine when they show up on the field today and they realize there's no one there because we didn't sign anyone, they'll realize, oh, we got to sign people. And then they'll fill out the roster. So I'm not too worried at the moment.
They're the only team without pitchers and catchers reporting.
Maybe an empty field when they get there.
It won't be.
Bag of balls.
Where are pitchers?
Where are pitchers and where are catchers? Just a couple of equipment guys and somebody sprinkling the field.
And a fungo.
That's what remains of our baseball team. While Ohtani is paid $700 million somewhere else.
It's a lot of money.
Too much.
Way too much.
You're not mad at Jeter?
Jeter's gone. What do I say, man? I hold grudges for?
It was a grift. It was all a grift.
You didn't know that,
do?
Dan, from the moment he said, I'm paying myself $5 million until I recoup my investment? You didn't know it was a grip?
I was happy at the time. I thought that he was getting Samson out of my life, but apparently he's coming up next.
He is. We got to talk to him about those uniforms. Didn't Nike just get embarrassed?
Nike is really getting hit with it on social media because they've changed the design on these uniforms, and Major League Baseball authentic uniforms now look cheap, and the players are kind of really upset about it. Everyone's upset about this, and it looks like Nike may have to do a recall.
There is business stuff to talk about with Samson. We're going to do it next. David Samson was not with us in Vegas. I have not talked to him. I'm guessing he's not terribly happy about all of that. I should say, and I don't think Meadowlark did a very good job of celebrating, that David Samson was our biggest award winner last year. His podcasts were voted best of. His singular podcast, he doesn't have multiple podcasts, won best of in 2 categories, best baseball podcast and best sports business podcast. So congratulations, David. I'm sorry that Meadowlark has failed to celebrate you in the way that it should.
No, I felt great watching all of your live shows and watching everyone having the best time. I especially enjoyed watching Juju and Lucy play craps with Chris, knowing that that's my thing. I think I would not have added anything to your time other than amazing connections, having been going to Vegas for over 30 years.
Well, yes, you are a bit of a celebrity in Vegas, are you not? You're somebody you do have all the contacts in Vegas, do you not?
I wouldn't say celebrity. I would say I just have access, and I have the ability to do a lot of fun stuff with a lot of fun people, with people who I enjoy working with and spending time with. And it was quite a bit of FOMO in that you guys absolutely nailed it. I'm thrilled, but I will tell you that I can certainly have been additive to what you were doing.
Is anyone in particular the source of your ire?
Yeah, you're in charge. It was obviously your decision to not have me there. It's not as though Meadowlark didn't spend money. I would have covered my own expenses, by the way, only in that I generally stay complimentary and the plane ticket, it wasn't an issue, but it wasn't even offered as a possibility. And given the amount of investment you made, I wasn't asking to be on your show the whole time, but maybe as a guest for 12 minutes. Maybe I just would have gone to a team dinner or enjoyed listening to Greg and Jeremy and the Hee Haw 7. It would have been fantastic. But I'm over it. It's done. What's done is done.
It doesn't seem like you're over it, though. And it seems like there's a whole lot of ice.
Angrier.
There's a whole lot of ice in the other room, as far as I can tell. And it seems like it's just my fault.
Well, I just would say that I've been sitting here since 9 o'clock, so I'll start with that. And I'm good. Everything's fine. Ready to go. What do you want to talk about today, Ben?
Nothing Personal is the award-winning podcast. The thing that I want to talk about, among many others, is what you made of the Super Bowl audience. The idea that it would be the highest-rated television show ever, that there would $50 million of bonus advertising from the game just going into overtime. The business of the Super Bowl, what were the most interesting parts of it to you?
Well, what a risk by having the Super Bowl in Vegas to start with. And what I was concerned, and you heard Joe Buck talk about it, Boomer Esiason mentioned it, just the possibility of something bad happening, because Vegas is a place of extremes where there's greatness and there's absolute the stuff that nightmares come from. And I would say the NFL came pretty much unscathed. There was one early arrest by a Raiders player, but you can dismiss that. He was in the parking in the valet DUI, and he lives there or he plays there. But in terms of the actual Super Bowl, nothing. There were no, perp walks, nothing like that. That was a positive. Then, of course, you had the game. And what Paramount did, CBS had the game where they announced the $123 million. 2 days later, just yesterday, they announced a bunch of layoffs. And I think that what's important to note is the number of people who watch the game doesn't correlate to earnings per share or to an increase in the stock price of a merged company. And at the end of the day, it is just business. The timing people are questioning, but you would never fire people before Vegas because they have work to do. Now's the time that you would let people go. It's obviously unfortunate, but with consolidation, with merging comes layoffs, and it has nothing to do with how many people watch the Super Bowl at all.
They could pay their CEO less. They could do that, too.
So that is yes,
could.
That is true. And Meadowlark could pay you less, and then you could give raises to everybody.
I mean, they
But
do.
at the end of the day, that's not how it works in the real world. It reminds me of the Jack Nicholson line in broadcast news when John Cusack's sister, Joan, says, we could avoid all these layoffs if you just take a pay cut, and she gets ushered away, like removed from the scene. Because that's not how it works. You don't have anchors or owners or the top talents take less. The people who suffer are the middle class and the lower class. And that happens not just on TV or off TV. It happens in every business, no matter what products you're making.
David, have you ever had a manager ever, at any point in your career in Major League Baseball, that didn't know the rules that you were paying him to know?
Are you talking about Kyle Shanahan not knowing the overtime rules?
Yes.
And then saying, no, we actually went through it with the analytics department and we wanted the ball first.
Yep.
Because that's the story he's sticking with. Mm-hmm. And I believe that. There is no scenario under which Kyle Shanahan did not know the overtime rules. We've had players not know rules. We've had players not know signs. And what you do is you just tell the player what the signs are when he's on base. But I've never had a manager not know a rule, except when something strange can happen during a game, and that's not a game going to extra innings or overtime. We had a rule book in the suite with the GM. We would have a rule book, and when we saw something happen, we'd go down to the clubhouse and we would get in contact with the manager when there was a dispute or a question about a rule. But something as ordinary as a postseason overtime game, no excuse for not knowing, and they did. The second thing, when a rule change like that happens, like in baseball, you get a separate memo before the season starts of all of the new rule changes, and you post that in the clubhouse. Doesn't matter if the players read it or not, but the manager has a laminated copy of it on his desk at all times, and we have one in the dugout. So like with challenges, remember when the challenge started and you didn't know what's challengeable, what's not?
More
Well, it's
memos.
right
More
there.
memos is what we need. That's what we need. More memos. More
Well, it's
laminated
just an
memos.
explanation.
I mean,
There's no way that Shanahan didn't know the rules. They made a decision, it didn't work. And what Jessica and Stu said is exactly right in this first segment that I wasn't on. It's that all he had to do was come out and say, that's exactly what we intended to do, but we gave up a touchdown, and we would have had a third possession if we had held them to a field goal. It didn't work out.
What do you think?
That should have been his
What do you
plan.
think the reason is for not going over the rules with its team? Because while he's saying on one side of his mouth that he went through that scenario with his analytics department, he admitted that he didn't talk to the players about this rule change, and you had players that were on that field totally oblivious to it.
I've never gone over rules with players. We never do. We read them the gambling rule before the season starts because we're told to by the CBA and by baseball. We don't go over what plays are challengeable or what aren't. That's why in baseball you see players challenge, or you see them go like this, and they don't know how many challenges you have left or when or what can be challenged. As far as San Francisco is concerned, here's the rule you need to know. Don't give up touchdowns. That's it. That's all you need to tell your defense.
Okay. I wish we'd just known. It's such a simple piece.
Patrick
It's
Mahomes.
such a simple piece of coaching. Do I have this right? Do you believe, have you said on Nothing Personal that you believe that Travis Kelce is a menace who needs anger management?
Yeah, I did a whole segment. I would have, and this is not going to be popular. First of all, I was upset with CBS, and I can say this even though I do work for them. They showed Kelce and Reed, and then they never mentioned it again. And I never saw a camera. Did Reed go talk to Kelce? And I didn't remember, did Kelce sit out a series? What were the ramifications of what Kelce did to Reed during that game? Because they both covered it up after they won the game. I'll tell you that. Saying, oh, all's great in love and war. I love him. He loves me. That sort of behavior is unacceptable. And it certainly gives you an eye into that level of anger. Now, is it caused by over-caffeination? Being over-caffeinated before a game? Are people sort of like the Incredible Hulk during a football game in order to psych themselves up? Whatever. No excuse for what he did. But I believe that CBS and I believe that the Chiefs gave him an out because of Travis Kelce, because of Taylor Swift, and they didn't want to ruffle any feathers, and I would have benched him. I would have had him
come
gone
on.
for one
David, get
Come
out of here.
on. Come
David,
on.
one series.
Come
David.
on.
If a baseball player attacks a manager physically during a game, you don't think he's taken out of the
I
game?
do think race is playing a factor here because I remember the weeks of shows people did when Odell Beckham Jr. kicked a field goal net, and this is the second time Travis Kelce has thrown a helmet. This is the first time he's bumped his quarterback, and I do think if that were, say, Kadarius Toney, it'd be processed way differently by everybody.
This is what A.J. Brown said as well, but you're not. You're saying it's being well undercovered is what you're saying. You're saying, can you imagine the story if Reed had benched him and they'd lost the Super Bowl? Are you out of your mind, David?
No, I'm not out of my mind because you've got a team of 50 players who are watching what Travis Kelce did and saying, oh, I guess he can do that. You don't want to treat – it's not as though Kelce's not being treated differently already with all the ridiculousness around Taylor Swift.
But, David, they're also watching Kelce on the field perform, and they're saying, oh, I can't do that. And so there is a sliding scale to this where, David, I'm going to take you back to 2003, okay? If Derek Lee punches Jack McKeon in the face, he's not benching him. But if Mordecai does, he's probably getting benched.
You're wrong. We did it to Pudge.
Right.
We did it to Pudge.
He punched
we
Jack
benched
McKeon?
Pudge for being disrespectful to his teammates and to Jack McKeon. We benched him. Go back and look at the game by game.
In the
When he
Super Bowl?
In the World Series?
No, he didn't do it in the World Series.
But if he had
we
done it in
certainly
the World
would've.
Series, David, if he had done it in the World Series, he's not getting benched.
I would have taken him out of the game. If he attacked Jack McKeon, I would have taken him out of the game, played Redmond, and then let Pudge play the next game.
Is it worth losing a championship to prove a point to discipline a player, David?
Yes. And by the way, I don't believe they would have lost the championship by benching Kelce for a series, and maybe they did.
What just
Except
happened
we-
there? What just happened?
I mean, there's quite the drop off between Travis Kelce and Noah Gray.
There is, David.
Oh, did something happen? Did
No.
we lose service?
It's I think I left you speechless.
You're sacrificing a championship to
By
make a
stating the
larger
obvious.
point.
We're mystified.
I'm not sacrificing a championship. You're not framing it right. If Kelce sits for a series, they don't necessarily lose that game.
Oh, so you're just sitting him a series. Okay.
I would have sat him for a series, and maybe they did.
Huh.
I should have benched him for the game. What he did is inexcusable, and no one talks about it because no one wants to upset Taylor. It's a joke.
You think that's the reason no one's talking about it? That we're afraid of upsetting Taylor Swift?
You're not talking about it because you don't want to be on the unpopular side of any issues like this.
No,
where you don't realize that there's
Dan,
a team.
you're afraid
what
of the
if
big
someone in your
issues.
container attacked you, Dan? What if someone attacked you right now? You're not going to put them in the quote unquote real penalty box? Give me a break.
All right. I'm going to imagine.
Josh
I'm
Beckett.
going to show in the next segment what it would look like if McKeon was in a fight before the game. I am going to apologize about 30 minutes too late to the audio-only audience for that 30 seconds of Jaylen Brown, Duncan Robinson trash talk that didn't sound like anything.
Because there was no sound.
Because it was mostly subtitles.
Yes.
And in so doing, I may lose a portion of the audio audience again here as I show again for the second day one of my favorite videos, Pedro Martinez fighting with Don Zimmer. And Don Zimmer rolls out forehead first to fight with Pedro. Pedro got into a lot of controversy where Mike says that race is involved because that Dominican young man threw him down to the floor by his ears. The lovable, bald Don Zimmer, and now Stugotz has Jack McKeon in a fight. Because David Samson, I want to address this very quickly with you, David. You are saying flatly, you're not saying you would, but you're saying some sort of discipline to show who's in charge, but not enough discipline to actually cost myself the game.
That's the tightrope that I'm willing to walk.
Okay, but you walked your position back some because benching him for the game would be even more badass and show who's in charge all the more, but would be even dumber than having a coach not know the rules in a Super Bowl.
You said it during a Super Bowl or a World Series game. For a regular season game, it's not even a question. If Kelce does that, and I don't mean throwing of the helmet, I'm talking about physically touching the coach, he's gone for the game at least.
But, David, going back to your 03 team that won the World Series, if Beckett, during the World Series, touches Jack McKeon, he's not coming out. You're not taking him out. Jack's not taking him out. Brad Penny, different story. You would skip a start for Penny with a smile on your face. Okay?
Penny was good in 03.
Whoa, Penny was good.
He was really good, for those of you who may not remember. So the answer is you have to. We had conversations like this because we had to have it about Hanley Ramirez, who was really a problem for us in the clubhouse, and we had to figure out what to do with him. And one of the things we did was bench him. And one of the things we did with Pudge when he disappeared during 03, and then he reappeared, Jack said to us, and we agreed, I'm not playing him. And Jeffrey said, you've got to play him. We want to win these games. And Jack said, if you really want to win as a team, you've got to show the rest of the team that you're not going to let the superstar dictate the terms. Travis Kelce, is he a first ballot Hall of Famer? Maybe.
Yes.
But he is way more. If you don't think that he's more in the news.
Don't diminish Kelce's credentials.
First ballot Hall of Famer.
So first ballot Hall of Famer, do you agree that he is more in the spotlight because of his relationship right now?
Yeah.
Yeah, naturally.
Yes.
Okay. Therefore, there is a different standard you're putting on what happened during that Super Bowl because it was the Super Bowl and because it was Travis Kelce. And Mike's not wrong. If that had been a different player, if that had been a black player who had done that, and there had been some sort of ramification for that, we're having a totally different discussion. And I would like to have the discussion based on how you don't lose your clubhouse. And again, CBS didn't show us. Do we know for sure that Travis Kelce didn't sit for a series? I don't know the answer to that.
I feel like it would have been pointed out, but either way.
Nothing was pointed out. It was left. Nothing was said.
Yeah, that's a kind of capital that Travis Kelce's bought with people because of his career. I want to switch gears quickly because I want to get your opinion on whether or not Nike's going to have to do a uniform recall because players are really upset that the customizable options on pants are gone, and consumers, the people that love to buy MLB merchandise, if you've seen the new uniforms, and we'll throw some comparisons between last year's on the left and this year's on the right. These new MLB uniforms look really cheap. And I think the reaction to this has been so toxic that we might actually see uniforms being pulled this year. David, what is your take on the new uniform controversy?
So you're catching me a little bit and we're live, so I think I'm right. But someone can do a fact check with the 40 people working there. Fanatics does the uniforms.
Fanatics
and
says
they licensed the Nike swoosh to put on them.
Correct. And
I don't believe they're
look.
manufactured by Nike.
So everybody wanted to take the opportunity to jump down Fanatics' throat because Fanatics is a very polarizing entity. But the specs were provided by Nike. Darren Rovell has done reporting on this. Even a Twitter account by the name of Fanatics Suck, which exists because they want to slam dunk every day of making fun of Fanatics. They put the blame over on Nike because Nike provides these specs, and it doesn't matter who manufactures it. They're just following the lead from Nike. Yes, they are licensing the swoosh, but the design, everything was provided by Nike.
So this is all done over a year in advance. It all gets approved. It all gets manufactured, and the specs get given to the licensees who then make the uniforms. There is zero chance that all the uniforms will be pulled and new uniforms will be made and then sent to all the teams prior to the regular season. These will be the uniforms. I draw your attention to when the Marlins switch uniforms, everyone complains. When every team switches uniforms, the majority of people are negative, and you just get through it. So I don't think there will be any change because what do you do with all these uniforms? MLB's not going to eat it. Fanatics is not going to eat it.
Yeah.
And so you're left with this inventory, and they're not going to write it off.
I hear you, although I feel pretty strongly now that I should put some action on these uniforms being recalled because of your passion here. But the players are coming out and saying these are bad. It's one thing if
no one cares.
If something it doesn't carry any additional weight if the players are complaining about it.
No.
Would you agree that it looks terrible?
I would agree that I couldn't read the names on the back of the Marlins uniforms, but those got approved by everybody. And now they're changed, I understand from your first segment. I hadn't seen them, but that's outstanding that they're now changed. Do I think that they look worse this year? I personally do, but a big part of the uniforms, I haven't felt them yet. And the players are very concerned about how they feel, what sort of the wicking is, and then sizing. Because some players, when we go through sizing with new players, this is a funny little story if you have a minute. We spend time with players who we acquire figuring out what size they like. Do they like their pants to be tight? Like Stanton always would have special issued undershirts that he would do his interviews in that were so tight that he would wear my size.
Right, but one of the chief complaints here, David, one of the chief complaints here is that those customizable options aren't afforded to players now.
So they are, because what you do is we have seamsters.
Whoa,
people
that was a glitch. That's a
You didn't want to say seamstress and just
We're good. You got it.
Yeah, it's
a
easy
real
to
glitch in the system there.
Yeah, it's okay.
Seamstresses?
Yes, there you go.
We have to play that back. I mean,
Are seamstresses only women? Because ours are men. So I didn't know whether it was a seamster. Anyway.
Is it a tailor?
Yeah. You can say kit man.
It is a kit man. We have a bunch of people in the clubhouse who are altering uniforms all the time. So I'm not worried about players not having the size they want.
You don't care at all what the players think about anything in this scenario. Like the players
About uniforms? No.
The players,
Wear your uniform.
well, but I mean, this is deeply personal, though, David. They're playing for 8 hours a day. They're in clothing. They'd like it to be something. They collectively bargain everything with you. It needs to look decent. It can't look cheap. Like if the players' union wants something like this to look better, if the complaints are loud enough, you don't get to just be right on this. They'll wear what we tell them to wear.
They will, but what a dream. If there's a negotiation where the players want to collectively bargain that they've got a say over the uniforms and they're willing to give up something financial for that, then I guarantee you players will have a say over what uniforms look like.
It's not without
But
precedent.
that is
It's not without
happen.
precedent in other sports with the unions not strong enough. Remember, they changed basketballs, and you might want to say, okay, well, that's what they play the sport with, so you can understand that. But remember, players rebelled against the sleeves that Adidas was creating for basketball. LeBron went as far as to tear sleeves off of his uniform, and they stopped manufacturing those. It did take some time.
What are you shaking your head about, Samson?
I'm laughing because, yes, there are moments that players like to take stands on certain things. We've had players take stands on what they wear under the uniform because that is also a rule. We tell the players what they can wear underneath and what can be shown. And now there's going to be rules, I'm sure, about having batting gloves hanging out of your back pocket because, God forbid, that ever gets tagged. But have never seen a baseball player take a stand like a LeBron James. I don't even know which baseball player would have that type of ability. It's not Judge, it's not Trout, it's not anybody who would have that level of power. It's not Max Scherzer. I can't think of anybody.
Bryce Harper?
Who would, no, absolutely not. No client of Scott Boras would get anything done with Major League Baseball.
All right, again with Scott Boras, here are your options because we've only got 3 minutes left, and I know I could get you going on Boras. He's got a bunch of clients who are still available as spring training begins. You love to hate on Boras. Is there anyone you hate more, and is it because he's better at business than you are?
No, it's because he screwed Jose Fernandez's family. I respected him when I negotiated against him because he got an owner to always give in, and he generally always got his players what they wanted. But when he crocodile teared at Jose's funeral, that was it. There is no coming back from that. There's no coming back from not properly being in touch or taking care of the family ever since and just walking away from them. There's no coming back. And I'm not a grudge holder. I don't have this level of visceral anger toward anyone else in my life as I do for him, because I know him well enough and I know what he did and I know exactly what is happening in the world of Jose's family, and I can't forgive it. I just won't.
What if he were to say to you, hey, David, it's nothing personal?
I'd say thanks for watching the show, which I know he has his people watch and listen to every show, and that makes me smile.
Let's play the clip for David here on him trying to figure out whether he should say seamstress or something else.
Is we have seamsters,
Whoa.
It's so great. Finally, it wasn't me.
That's the world we live in, where I need to be worried about not upsetting anyone with the word seamstress.
You didn't need to worry about that, but you did. Play it again in its face. You didn't need to worry.
Seamsters. Seams.
Whoa. Why didn't you stop complaining about the world you live in and just say it right?
Because did you know that there's no male version of seamstress?
Well, I didn't know the rules of overtime either, but it didn't make me stop criticizing Kyle Shanahan.
Neither did Shanahan.
He knew the rules.
He did not.
30 seconds or less. What are you reviewing?
Oh, 30 seconds for Society of the
That's
Snow,
tough,
and
man.
whether or not you
All right, no.
You're
all right.
halfway done
Save
with
it.
it, Dave.
All right,
It's really
save it.
good.
Hold on. Hold on. Just stop right there. Do your review, and Juju will put it out on social by itself because you don't want to be limited to 30 seconds. Nothing Personal is the podcast. If you want 50 daily minutes, they are rocket fueled with David Samson every morning. Thank you, David.
Take care. It's 45. We have seamsters. Seams.
Whoa.